Good afternoon to you, Taylor, and good afternoon to everyone out there today. Welcome to the program. Of course, football season is, you might say, in full swing now after this week zero. I won't get onto a diatribe today about week zero and exactly what it means. I don't know what it means. I really don't. I mean, I was thinking, whenever they're playing games and it's week one, I don't know of the pros or college or any other football league that calls the first week, not even football, but basketball, that calls the first week of their regular season week zero. So anyway, I know I do this every year. Just want to remind myself of why I think week zero is ridiculous. Anyway, week zero was last night. Nevertheless, the powers that be wants it week zero, so week zero it is. We'll go with it. And I noticed that there were several teams last night that played a lot. Some played on Thursday night as well, so it's a lot more than I had expected. By the way, Naeem McFadden has a great preview for the football season in this week's edition of the Marion Star Mullins Enterprise. And I didn't read a lot of it yet, but the pictures are great, and these stories are going to always be good because Naeem is that kind of guy. He's very good. He's the editor of the paper. Has been for many years, but he's a big sports guy, so that gives us as sports fans a bonus. Because if you had an editor of the paper who wasn't a sports fan, then you will get what folks get when they have a guy who's not a sports guy, the editor of a paper. And there's a pullout in there as well, Prep Football 2018, and I'm thinking this is for the whole area that they have thrown in there because of the connection with the Florence Morning News. But as far as by the way, I really have to say this right now. Aretha Franklin, oh boy, one of the greatest voices that we've ever had, one of the greatest voices that I've ever heard, has transitioned. She passed away a couple of days ago. And the outcry of her passing has been enormous. I mean, people can't stop talking about it. She was that special. She was an activist. She sung gospel, mostly before she went to secular music. And she had one of the most unique voices ever. People adored her across the board. People respect her talent across the board. And she's going to be missed. So sleep in peace, Queen. The thing about when someone like Aretha passed away, us older generation folks, we seem to take a bigger hit with it because we feel like it's a part of us that's leaving. And it really is. The first time I heard Aretha Franklin sing was on WLIB New York, 80OJ, and that's when the song Respect came out. And Respect had already been done by Otis Redding, and Otis did a great job of it, but she made it into something different. And that's the first song I've ever heard by her, and after that, I think I heard somewhere last night she won 16 Grammys. I mean, I'm like, really? So she did good work, and she's going to be missed. And I'm sure all of you, as well as myself, dropped a few tears when we heard that she had passed away. There's nothing wrong with it. Anyway, last night, Carolina Forest got shut out by Marlboro County 36-0. Cheraw nipped Darlington 44-41. Dillon opened last night against Lumberton 49-20. The defending state champs get it done. Dorchester Academy 32, Kings Academy 6. Douglas Byrd nipped Fairmont 38-28. The East Clarendon and Timmonsville game was postponed until Monday. Excuse me, could have been a weather thing. Lamar, Silver Foxes. Now, I saw Hemingway last week, and they look pretty decent. But apparently, Lamar is back in championship form. They beat Hemingway last night, 69-7. South Florence over James Island, 41-14. Johnsonville blanked Creek Bridge, 42-0. Andrew Jackson over McBee, 45-3. Pinecrest beat Purnell Sweat, 31-14. Scotland County and David L. Butler will play today. Loris 33, St. James 21. And here's another ridiculous score. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Carver's Bay in a minute. 81-14 over Waccamaw. Green Sea Floyd seems like they're not going to be a pushover this year. I don't know how good West Columbus is, but certainly Green Sea Floyd seems ready for the season. They knocked off West Columbus 49-0. West Brunswick beat Socastee. This is one of those border war things with playing against North Carolina schools, South Carolina schools. West Brunswick 36, Socastee 29. Big win for West Florence last night. They beat Crestwood 59-47. And the Wilson Tigers beat in-county rival Lake City by a score of 26-6. You remember a couple years ago when Lake City and Wilson had that throwdown, that big fight, and they had stopped playing each other for a significant amount of time. I guess all that bad blood has passed. So now Lake City and Wilson are renewing their rivalry. And last night, they were able to handle Lake City. Games for this week coming up. Mullins will host Creek Bridge. These are the in-county games. Mullins, Creek Bridge, and then Marion will play against, I believe, Latta. I can't seem to find that paper here, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Marion's got Latta next week. And that's going to be a very significant opening for them because Latta was very good last year. Marion was not. And now local fans, Marion fans, are chomping at the bit to see if they can turn around that 1-9 from last year. That was unprecedented for a Marion football team. But I did get to see them last week. Last Saturday, I went down to Carver's Bay. Took that long drive through the forest, and that's all it is forest. When you leave Marion and you head down 41, there's nothing but woods all the way down there for about 20 miles. Then you come out of the woods and you hit the PD Bridge, and you go through Kingsburg and Johnsonville and Hemingway, and after that, you make that left turn right there, and you are back into the wilderness. But once you get to Carver's Bay High School, it's kind of like an oasis in the middle of nowhere. The school is beautiful. The sports facilities are great. It's a great feeling being down there at Carver's Bay. The people are friendly, just good old country folk. And I was really a little bit I was kind of like surprised at the number of players that Carver's Bay had, being a traditional 2A power and all. I only counted 23 people in uniform as they played against Creek Bridge. So they had 23. Creek Bridge had, I think I counted 14. That's 36 players in uniform for both teams. So I put that out there. A lot of people were talking about, oh man, this is not good. Football, is losing its grip. The kids don't want to come out and play. Well, one of the coaches for Carver's Bay told me that this is the smallest number they've ever had to start a football season. Now, they think that a couple are going to come out, a few people are going to come out and, to add to the roster. I like to see that happen. But that win they had last night, apparently the numbers don't matter to Carver's Bay because they tattooed somebody last night in a big way. And that has to be, I know that the coach, this is going to be his last season. So I think he's got a couple state championships, at least one. And they've been a perennial power, as I said, over all these years. But I think even the Carver's Bay fans were a little bit taken aback when they seen their team run out on the field, and it was just a few of them. it was eerie, so to speak, because you can always expect Carver's Bay to have, high 30s, low 40s. But apparently the coach said that the kids just ain't coming out this year. So we'll have to see what happens going forward. Watching Marion last week against, who did they play last week? I think it was Johnsonville. I'm going to say it was Johnsonville. I saw some good things out there. I see a renewed, vigorous attitude by the Marion coaching staff, as well as the players. A lot of young players. But some of the ones that really got my attention was the quarterback, Dooley Allen. Dooley's not a big guy, but he's strong and he's fast. And Johnsonville found out just how fast when, as the jamboree was winding down and Johnsonville was leading, Dooley managed to get outside on the left side from about 40 yards out, maybe 45 yards out. And he was off to the races. And by the time they caught up with him, it was too late. He was in the end zone. And Marion had won. The Marion coach sent me a text last week. He was okay about how they played. He thought that they played a little sloppy, his words. But as he said to me, a win is a win. And he's right. After you're coming off a season like they did, you look for every reason to be positive. And I think that they've had some reasons thus far to be positive. Another guy that's really got my attention, and he's a basketball player too, so maybe that's a part of it. He's a beast in football, and that's Davion Evans, young man who I had talked to last year when I thought, some people were kind of coming down on him a little bit. He was a little bit off the chain in the eyes of many. So I talked to him. I said, you know what? I ran into him. It was after I did the show last year, and I was driving down Main Street, and I seen him walking. And I parked my car, and I called him, and we talked for a minute. And I was telling him, I said, son, as talented as you are, there's some people who are giving up on you. And I said, you don't want that to happen. So, we went back and forth for a few minutes. And finally he said, Mr. Jenkins, he said, I got you. He said, I'm going to change this path I'm on, in effect. And according to the basketball coaching folks and the football, he has changed. And last week on the football field against Johnsonville, he looked frightening. He's not that big, but he's about 6'3", and he's got a great physical stature. Long, lean, fast, got tremendous hands and tremendous ups. That's where his basketball comes in. Because when I seen him play middle school basketball, the guy is a rebounding machine. He wasn't even the size he is now. He was smaller then. But his athleticism, his ability to get up off the floor, I feel he's going to be a factor for them in basketball this year, because what's the most important thing when you're playing basketball? Having the basketball. This kid goes out and he gets it. And he'll get it a lot, and he'll put it back into the hands of all those other guys who, can do something with it offensively. But on the boards, he's an animal. There's a kid named Christian James, and people know his dad as the bread man. Christian, he was telling me about his son for the last 2 years. And, because football is kind of, you can't see people because of the helmets. You don't know what they look like. You don't know who the kids are. But I watched Christian James last week. He's playing linebacker for Marion right now. And this kid's hungry. And he's a strong, physical, with a mean streak, which is kind of what you need to have when you are, playing defense or even offense on football. You have to be aggressive. And he's aggressive. He was all over the place last week, all in the backfield, knocking cats around. So I want to say to the bread man, thanks for, pointing me in the direction of your son, because I think he can really be something special. I don't know what grade he's in this year. Not sure, but I know that he is going to be a factor this year for Marion. William Gurley is a kid that my former co-host Jimmy Howard and I have been talking about for a good while now, because he didn't play anything, but Jimmy saw that. He said, Michael, I believe this kid could be good in basketball and football. So finally, Jimmy, in his inimitable fashion, somehow nudged the kid to go out and play football. So he went. Now, he is probably the biggest surprise on the football team this year so far. Never played before. I think they put him at a nose guard or something. One thing about him, he's not scared. He's aggressive. And I think they can really do something with him and really teach him the ropes where he can end up being a pretty decent football player and impactful this year for them. I believe that can happen. So I took a picture of him this morning when I passed by where his dad works in Marion. And, his whole attitude has changed. He was very shy, never said nothing. I used to talk to him. He would barely respond. It was like he was in a shell. But now that he has come out from an athletic standpoint, and I believe that it's helped him. It's helped him in his growth. It's helped him in his personality. He's a good-looking kid. So I was kind of joking with him. I said, okay, now that you're on the team, here come the girls. He was like, he kind of laughed a little bit. But I'm very proud of what he's done. I'm looking forward to him getting better and being, because, from what I understand, I wasn't here at the time, but George Gurley, his dad, said his dad was a beast. George tells me he was a beast too. But now I'm not just talking about what he said, but I'm talking about what people in the community have said about George and how he was this little short guy and he was really knocking people around. I think that between the football coaching staff and now that his dad knows that he wants to play because he never pushed him, I think that he would be able to help this kid along where he could turn out to be something really good going forward. But the teams that I saw there last week, Hemingway, Johnsonville, King Street, Marion, Carvers Bay, and Creek Bridge, all look pretty decent considering it's still early. Saw some good things out there for each team. And I'm sure some of the coaches came away with feeling good about where they were at this point. I want to mention one other kid, and that's Zay Leggett of Mullins, a young man who's taken on a new role this year, formerly a wide receiver, defensive back kind of guy. Now he's stepped into the quarterback position. Long, maybe 6'2" and change, great athletic body, a three-sport guy. His best sport probably being baseball. And but when you look at him as a football player and what his upside could be, I think could be tremendous because he's got the size where he could grow into any number of positions. Because when you're 6'3", you could end up putting on enough weight to be a defensive lineman. You could end up being, a tight end. You could end up being, back at his regular wide receiver position. Or it's possible that he could develop into a bona fide next level quarterback. He's a beast in basketball too, with tremendous leaping ability and court awareness. He's got it all for basketball too. But unless something changes between here and next year, because he's a senior this year, you're going to probably see Zay go next level in baseball because he's basically a prodigy. I've been hearing about him for years and years. And I saw where he made a proclamation last week that he was ready to make some things happen this year. And that's the one thing about him that I wasn't too sure about, because he's an easygoing kid, personality-wise. He speaks softly, and he doesn't talk a lot. But now, with him basically coming out and saying, hey, I'm ready to take charge of this thing, then that, is a good sign for me in terms of the direction that he's going in. The talk of Mullins is, I hadn't seen them on the field yet except for a little practice. But Mullins, right now, people are extremely excited over there. I say over there. Over there meaning I'm in Mullins right now. Marion's back this way. But over here in Mullins, people are getting very excited. See, a lot of people don't realize, even though Mullins is a basketball school, there's a football constituency over there. There are people over in Mullins who are football people and not basketball people. I was talking to the coach Tony Nelson a couple of weeks ago. I was saying, Tony, why don't I never see you at basketball games anymore? He was like, they don't play basketball like they're supposed to. But anyway, but Tony doesn't hardly come to any basketball games. He's a part of that football thing because he was a big star at Mullins High School, got a scholarship to go to college and all that. But people don't normally think of Mullins as a football school. That has been in the past reserved for people right down the road from here. Marion. Now, all of a sudden, Marion's basketball has risen, and the football has dipped a little bit over the last couple of years. So now people think of Marion as basketball in some respects, almost as much as, football at one time. But it's going to be an interesting season. I can't say right now what I think it's going to turn out to be. I think you'll see some moderate improvement with the Swamp Foxes. Look, if you won one game last year, how many games does it take for you to win this year for people to feel better about things? That depends on the fans. You have different levels of fandom in Marion. You got those old head hardcore guys. And I would bet that what they're feeling is after the season they had last year, they probably want to make the playoff. But that's not going to be easy. Number one, Marion is going to be playing tougher people this year. They are now in Class 3A, at least theoretically anyway. At least in the case of some of their opponents, it's going to be tougher because, Dillon has won, and I don't even remember how many, but they won 5 or 6 state championships the last 7 or 8 years. They had won 3 in a row before they got beat the year before. Then they started a new streak last year. Dillon is the real deal. Dillon is as good as it gets in the state of South Carolina. In football, no matter what level, I would put them up against anybody in the state, and I promise you, I believe that they will give as good as they get. I don't care if it's 5A, 4A. Dillon is for real, and they're going to be a problem again. And it just so happens that Marion has them on their schedule. Now, Mullins was playing Dillon every year, and it wasn't working out too well. I kept asking myself aloud and asking anybody who would listen, why do they keep playing those guys? They keep getting crushed every year. Now they are a conference game for Marion. And so that's like a double whammy because not only do you have to play them, But you playing them is going to matter when it comes to playoff seedings in a few months. So, I mean, anything could happen. The last time when Marion went over to Dillon and beat Dillon several years ago, I didn't see that coming. I don't think any Dillon fans did either. But it did happen. The coach at the time was Marty McIntyre, who's now the defensive guru for Dillon. In fact, Dillon's got a lot of Marion County guys over there. Splinter Spivey is over there, who coached over here at PD Academy and played there. And some other dudes, too. And those guys are getting work done. Marty McIntyre is, and he's one of the best defensive guys anywhere. And he's on Dillon's coaching staff. And they got a ton of other guys who've been around for years, along with Coach Jackie Hayes. But looking at Marion's schedule, they're going to have a tough one next week against Latta. They're going to have another tough one in the rivalry game against Mullins. And that game comes up week after next. And then they tackle Timmonsville and then Lakeview, our neighbors to the north over here, who got beat the other night by a Hannah Pamplico team that has been on a steady rise for the last several years. I don't know what happened over there, but someone wanted Hannah Pamplico's football team to be good, and they are right now. They beat Lakeview Thursday night. And going down into the swamp to wrestle with the Wild Gators is not something where people come out for the better, usually. Well, Marion's got to do that dance this year. On the 14th of September, they travel to Lakeview. And then they got Aner, who has been a thorn in their side for the last few years after basically being doormats, welcome wagons, homecoming game for Marion over the years. I mean, Marion used to trash it. It was a given that whenever they played Aner in any sport, they were going to win, especially in football, especially in basketball. That's not been the case lately, as Aner has now become. But again, they lost their coach. He's over to West Florence now. So that may put a little chink in their armor, maybe. But that guy was really good. So after that, Marion has a few conference games, and these are not going to be easy. None of these games are going to be easy. Lake City got beat last night by Wilson, but they're going to be a problem. Chirac. That's one of Marion's rivals from back in the old Region 6-3A days, where it was kind of funny. You go to Chirac's game, and they had a cat that ran out there with a pinto horse with a Native American headset on, and a big spear that he ran out on the field with, and he threw it down in the middle of the field. Crowd went crazy. I don't think they have the guy with the horse anymore. I kind of wish they did, because that added to the pageantry of the football madness that was going on around here at the time. But this year, Marion will get them at home. So Marion will probably get a chance to plant their own flag this year and possibly get a win against Chirac. And the last game of the season, one of those other rivals that they've had over the years, Loris Lions, and that game will be played at Loris. And I expect it will be a tough one as well. When I got up and came over here this morning, I had on my Georgia Bulldogs hat. And I bought that Georgia Bulldogs hat when I was on my way back from Florida some years ago because it looked good And my wife suggested, hey, why don't you get that hat? I said, why not? So I got the hat. So I wore the hat last year to a South Carolina Gamecock basketball game. And people were looking at me funny. They weren't nearly as friendly as they had been in all the other years that I've gone up there too. But no, they weren't happy with that. So my wife had worn this one day we were out, and she left it in the back seat of my car. So I saw it. I said, you know what? Maybe I'll wear my Yankees hat because I'm wanting my Yankees to do something, and they're getting on my nerves right now. Can't beat the Red Sox. That's a problem. Hopefully, we'll be able to get something done when the playoffs start. Because I watched last weekend as Boston kind of just slapped us around. And no self-respecting New York Yankee fan likes that. We don't mind losing to somebody else, but not those Boston Red Sox. And right now, it looks like the Red Sox are the best team in football and baseball. Anyway, folks, that's all I got. I'll be back next week with more. Have a wonderful, safe week. Get out and see a football game this week. Later.
You look at them. I seen you at the store when I was passing by. You was coming out. The store right here. And when